My name is Ray Kilgore. I am a mainframe architect here at CDW. So I am a mainframe architect here at CDW. I have been working for, I guess, CDW, I'll say 3 years. Prior to that, it was Sirius. And we get this question a lot. I attend conferences and we're at the booth. So, CDW and mainframe, it's kind of a, how does that fit? And, so the answer to that question is several years ago, CDW actually acquired Sirius Computer Solutions. And for those that, may not be familiar with CDW, we are familiar with mainframe because that was our heritage from the Sirius background for decades. So lots of experience that was acquired through this acquisition in the mainframe arena. So just in case you're not aware, just want to, that seems to be a common question that we get hit up several places. My background, I had 42 years in the industry, all related to mainframe. 35 years of that was within IBM, and those were various Z-related projects from manufacturing to development to field and kind of more into a support engineering role with IBM, into a technical engineering or technical interfacing role with customers for probably 15 years, and then carried that over into CDW. So I have been a IBM Z person for 42 years. Proud of it. So for those that are joining, we looked at where things are going, and based on some questions that I attended several tech conferences. Share, we actually helped run the booth, and when I asked people, where are you with zOSMF, and have you used it? I'd say 2 or 3 out of 10 basically said, no, we know it's there. We haven't started the journey yet. And so we started thinking, well, there may be a lot of people out there that's going to be needing some help. And from our perspective, we've been using zOSMF since, I won't say since creation. If you're not aware, zOSMF actually came out back in zOS version 1.11. Which was, I'll say, the 2010 timeframe. Let's just say it wasn't really stellar at that point in time. There were growing issues, maybe I won't call it growing pains, but that's 14 years ago. So zOSMF has been out there for a while. It hasn't been out there in the current flavor or look and feel that it is today, and it is truly, I think, grown from what I would call a Stone Age into a modern platform. For you, if you're not aware, I've got a couple of slides I'm not going to spend a lot of time on, but zOSMF is a true modernization GUI web browser that is meant to make standard processes going forward easier to use, both for the existing system programmer or for any net new generation coming in on the machine. And it can be used to manage policies. In this situation, in this webinar, we're going to focus more on software installation, because we believe right now, I think a lot of people are going to need that assistance with getting up to the latest 3.1 zOS level, or 2.5, whichever where you are now today coming from. But we think you're going to need that expertise, and we're here to help you do that. And if you look at all of the changes over time, even with 3.1, there's a lot of new enhancements coming that I think will be beneficial, from resiliency to there's new AI interfaces. There are some enhancements with Sysplex on CF Sizer, on sizing policies and updating the CFRMs. There is some enhancements with WLM. There's a ton of enhancements. And the last time I looked, I believe I counted like 30 different applications, that are available for zOSMF. And those are a variety of things, not only installing software, but monitoring data sets, you name it. So you can kind of see where IBM is going with the future for zOSMF. And I'm going to pay tribute for this slide before I go on. This is one of our SMEs, Dave Myers. I did a little AI imaging that, I don't know that he was aware of, but anyways, I kind of want to use this as a backdrop going forward. So we are going to focus today more on the software installation, and that's going to be strictly the PSI, the software instance installation for zOS. If you don't know, or if you haven't dealt with this, probably back in 2022, I think IBM pretty much said all of our software delivery is going to be through this portable software instance interface through zOSMF. And so when you go order ServerPac, you're going to have to order it in that type of instance. And not only does that apply for zOS, it also applies for the other various software images that IBM's delivering. It could be DB2, it could be Kix, it can be a lot of things. And this is a standard that is going to be it actually has been rolled out, and it's available for various ISVs. So pretty much all of your zOS software installations going forward is going to require the use of zOSMF and this portable software instance. One of the things that we decided that was going to drive this, the interest here coming up this year, if you are a zOS 2.4 user, hopefully this isn't new news, but end of service is going to be coming up in September of this year. So you are going to have to migrate to 2.5 or to 3.1. Assumption is, if you're going to make the jump, you'd probably do 3.1. Don't have to. But you are going to have to use, if you've not ordered anything before now, you are going to have to use the PSI interface in order to get that migration done. And then we started with our discussions with customers, not only from the conferences, but just one-on-one. We know there's several folks out there that have not started this at all. So we started thinking, well, maybe we'll just kind of throw out a process that might be beneficial, may not be. I can tell you, if you're a seasoned programmer and you have been doing using the PSI, the zOSMF PSI interface for 2.4, 2.5, now 3.1, this is probably not going to be a lot of interest for you because of the fact that what we're going to do here is something a little bit different. It could be good for you if you have some gen new people that's coming on board that needs training. If you want simplification as far as how to install both using the driver. There is a zOSMF, they call it light version. We're not going to cover that today, but if you want to go forward and you haven't got started and you just want to get the basic zOSMF infrastructure brought up, there's a thing called IBM referred to as the zOSMF Lite, and really all that is you're using the zOSMF nucleus, and then you're actually installing some of the key core services that are required to do whatever the function is you're doing. So there is a simplified version of zOSMF if you just have to get this started and you don't want to be bogged down with all of the various application installation stuff. For discussion today, we focused on what we call COD, which is the customized offering driver, and I'll explain that. Hopefully most of you haven't some of you may have been around where you actually had to use that. We'll talk about what it is, why we used it, and then my goal for today is to go through our experience with the COD driver. Just a couple of, I actually have more than a couple. I have probably, I don't know, 20, 25 slides. Some of those are maybe a little hard to read, but they're used for backdrop reference as we went through the process. I'm going to try to go through that probably in 20 minutes or so, and I want to leave more time at the end because I'm not sure with everybody out here what the interest will be as far as, in this webinar especially. I know there's probably going to be a mix of talent from seasoned system programmers that are already involved doing zOSMF installations, and maybe some that have never even started. So if you never started, this is great. If you have started, there may be some things in here for you. And then at the end, I want to have, I've invited several or 2 or 3 of our seasoned programmers for the I call it open mic session at the end. So if you have questions, not necessarily relating to this presentation, but if you have questions in general, we can kind of open that up for a discussion at the end of the presentation. So just a little bit on our journey when we started this. It was back in January. Now it's April, so it's been a few months. We had some things kind of pop up in between, but we should have probably done this earlier, but we're doing it. We actually have several system programmers that work in our group. This listed here is 3 of them. Dave Myers, I'm going to give Dave credit as the SME, and then Dan Wong and Dick Winston are also seasoned programmers that worked on this journey. I'll call it the virtual caveman webinar series that we went through internally, trying to go through different various installation techniques. We had, several challenges as we went through this, and I'll kind of cover some of those ups and downs from ordering to installation. In honesty, we were hoping that we could just do OSMF, I think, in a couple of days, but I think, we would go forward, we would kind of bump our head on the cave a little bit and have this, drop back. So I'll share a couple of those things with you as we go through this. But anyway, so as I went through the web, I was kind of looking to see what the user experiences were with the zOS 3.1. And IBM actually had a blog out here, and it was page after page, pretty much the same. It was very positive from net new users to experienced users. If you look at this, the paragraph from the bottom, kind of a lot of us, I think, if you've been around for a while, you're really hesitant to move forward. But once you start working with zOSMF and the screens, it's old habits are hard to get away from. You still want to pull back on those green screens, and that's perfectly fine. zOSMF is not an all or nothing, and more specifically, the PSI, the portable installer, is not all or nothing. You can basically have a hybrid approach where you're going to use that interface to get started. It's going to be a sequential list of events and things and tasks that you're going to have to do. But if you want to jump on the side, it's going to create JCL jobs that's going to run. And yes, you can jump over to the green screens and you can modify and update those jobs. You can use the green screens to view that stuff if you want. To be honest, you can do the exact same thing using zOSMF. And really the only difference is one's a green screen, which is your TSO, SDSF output, or the other is the zOSMF white screen. It's still going to present the same information. You're still going to need to know JCL, and all of the core zOS requirements. So, whether it's a modern white screen or an old green screen, not really. It's just hard breaking that habit, and you can use either one. And there'll be some cases where in the installation process that we used, it actually broke where it wasn't fixable through the zOSMF workflow. We actually had to run on our own. We had to run multiple jobs in order to complete a process. So there may be times that you're going to have to maybe vary from the process or procedure. The next couple of slides are really just more of an introduction. I've already kind of gone through, zOSMF going from the last 14 years where it's come from. It's going to be a standard interface. It's going to be the interface that IBM has used or will be using and other ISVs going forward. It's going to be a standard repeatable interface. You're going to go through similar deployments and workflows as if you're using for software installation that you would normally use, and it's kind of more of a habitual thing. The more you use it, you're going to become more familiar with it, and it will become more at ease as you go forward. So one of the things that we ran into early on, we knew there were some things that IBM kind of told us, zOS kind of starting back in this, zOS 3.1 became available September last year for ordering. We knew there were some enhancements and fixes coming in zOSMF in the area of ZFS in particular. There was some other PTS and stuff. And so we kind of dragged our feet and waited till mid-December when we thought we were good, and we ordered our software instance. And then we found out, well, maybe that wasn't really quite up to date. We had some issues and we had to reorder. During the install process, we had problems pop up. And so we had to drop back and restart again. And then there were some other issues as we got into this. January turned into February. We did start out with our maintenance applied, but, you know, maybe shame on us. And we kind of learned the hard way, maybe a little bit that, over as you progress and as time progresses, there are quite a few fixes that come out from IBM. So as you start your journey into zOSMF and the portable software instance installation, there is a fixed category, called IBM Driving System Dash Required Service. Highly recommend that you guys run that not only when you start, but during the process, because there were several times when we would run into a bug and it was in January, and then we ran into a bug in February, which just had a fix that came out in February, right? So you always want to make sure that you're staying current on your maintenance. It would have helped us, maybe avoid a few bumps in our head as we went along the process here. But this is a good fix, Cat. If you're not familiar with it, I would definitely use this one going forward. So as I said, we started out, there were some ServerPac builds. There was a cutoff date. IBM basically said, you kind of hold off, especially if you have large ZFSs, which we do, because we are a business partner. We do run a high mix of IBM products, and a lot of those products require a lot of ZFS file systems. And so we kind of waited till December 13th. Actually, I think we ordered prior to this, and then we ran into one of the bugs really early on. We had it was a version 9 error. It just posted, and it was one of those where it was not really intuitive to what the error was, other than some problem with version 9, which we were, quickly realized once we went back and did the research. There's a PTF for that one. And like I said, there is some enhancements here with how the ZFS file system, some of the capabilities of laying out a ZFS file system. So if you jumped on the gun and you ordered, 3.1 back in September, October, you really probably should have a more current release just to pick up those fixes and some of the changes. And then the COD system that we use, there was kind of some similar things going on there, which became available just recently in February. As you get started, if you're running 2.4 or 2.5, just be aware that zOSMF 2.4 and 2.5 does require Java 8. You can see the minimum service pack level listed here. If you are going to 3.1, it's going to require the new Cimaru 11. That's going to be changed into Cimaru 17 in August of this year. So if you kind of look at the note at the bottom, start at 11, you're going to go to 17. And just a couple of key highlights here. zOSMF 2.4, 2.5 can't run with Cimaru 11. And if you're running zOSMF 3.1, you can't run zOSMF 3.1 on Java 8. However, there are other applications besides zOSMF that you may want to run under 3.1. So yes, 3.1 does support Java 8, just not for zOSMF. COD. So what is COD, in case you've never heard of it, or if you've heard of it, you're like, man, I'm crazy. Why are we doing this? So once again, back to simplification, and I'll talk about that here in a second, but COD is a customized offering driver. It's basically a system you're going to use when if you've never had anything up and running on a mainframe. This is where you get started. It is a clean, simple system. And I'll go through some of the reasons why we chose it. We're thinking that for customers that don't have or have not gotten started with zOSMF, maybe you have some new hires. I can tell you at the last conference, or at least the last several conferences, always kind of sat in the back of the room along with everybody else. And I look around the room and I see, in the past, I saw a lot of gray-haired folks like myself, not down in gray hair, because I got a lot of it. But in the recent conferences, I'm seeing less and less gray hair, and I'm seeing a lot more of the new hires and the next generation of folks coming into mainframes, not only from sysprogs, but presenters. And so, I see the landscape changing. And so simplicity, maybe you have some net new people coming on board that need training. Maybe you've not started with zOSMF and you need to get it up and get it started kind of quickly, and you don't want to maybe mess around with the current environment. COD is a simplistic way of doing that. It doesn't take a lot of volumes. You can still order COD through ShopZ. It's going to be installable through your HMC. I don't know if there's any, I guess there may be a few of you out there that still have the DVD HMCs. Most likely it's going to be a USB type of thing where you're going to pull it down, put it on a USB stick, or you're going to use it through FTP. But it is a simplistic scaled down software that you can use as the driver for zOSMF to install, your current 3.1 or 2.5, whatever it is that you're going to go to. So simplicity was there. That's one of the reasons we thought we'd kind of start with that, and we can certainly help folks do that if needed. I think it's a great platform if you have any new hires that just need the training. It's a great way to get training for installing zOSMF. I'm sorry, installing just zOS in general, and then you can use it as the base for zOSMF, as it's really a scaled down operating system, especially with like a RecF and some security, which I'm sure a lot of you have probably run into as you go through your zOSMF journey. SAF or RACF security things seem to be one of the #1 problems, blocking or stopping or causing issues with people. And then just the new interface itself. I think anything new, everybody kind of pushes back from a little bit, but once you get the hang of it, you move forward, then things become kind of rudimentary and it becomes easier. So we decided on this. We tried several different variations here. We tried we thought it would be a good just to kind of document our journey using a COD base, and that's what we've done here in this presentation, just to kind of show what we did and how we went through this. We didn't want to do the same old how to install zOSMF. If you have looked around at all, the name Kurt Quackenbush or Marna Wally, I'm sure most of you are familiar with those, but there are a ton of tutorials, not only in write-ups, but in video format that are available. And I have links at the back of this presentation to some of the common sites that we used for support and how to help get through things. Because there were times when we would have to stop and we'd have to go back and look, and what did Kurt say? And he's done a really good job with a video series on walking you through the zOSMF installation process. And there's also a ton of support pages with blogs. I'll talk about some other stuff here coming up here. There's a couple other things within IBM that I think are very useful and good to know about. So environment for the site, we have a Z16. We have been running zOSMF for several years. We've been using it to install not only zOS, but other software instances as well. So we've had, several years of experience doing this within our team. Back on the slide where we had 3 system programmers in the virtual cave, they took turns. Like I said, I introduced Dave as kind of the SME, but the other folks, Dan and Dick, took turns in the driver's seat, driving the car. I think the car may have went off road a little bit on a couple of these, but and it's more of the kind of the learning the interface a little bit, but it's some, like I said, with the maintenance. But our guys have all been in the driver's seat. I kind of stayed in the back seat for the most part. But from a simplicity point of view, the COD system is really scaled down. It does have basic, you have some customization and IP you need to do. We realized really quick we probably should have took more time and probably did some DNS or some name resolution configuration, which we ended up doing just to make things easier. There is some zOSMF customization. If you look at the IZU PRM XX PARM, this is where you're going to basically set up a lot of your basic configuration, your applications for zOSMF. You need to make sure you're pointing your driver when you come up. It's a web interface. Make sure you're pointing it to your COD driver. RACF was probably one of the easier things. It comes up in, I guess, protect mode or warn mode. So it's not going to basically lock you down on a lot of things. It's going to warn you if you're doing something, but you're going to get away from some of those, maybe those security things that's going to kind of cause some headaches from an installation point of view. Doesn't take a lot of space, a couple, 2 or 3 mod 9s for the installation base. One of the big things I think probably the negatives with COD is it doesn't come with SMPE. Doesn't mean you can't model and copy over SMPE information, which is what we ended up doing in the end. But from a simplicity point of view, it does make it kind of simple in that you can kind of at least get things up and go and kick the tires and do an install and just see how things are running. From the zOSMF ordering perspective, not a lot of issues there. We did have to reorder because of the timing. We had the early December version, and then we ended up having to reorder later in December to pick up some things that we really wanted to have on here before we did the install and the process. But that process is through ShopZ. It's a fairly simple process, and then once you order your software instance, then there's a couple of ways of getting that into zOSMF. You can download it to your laptop and upload it into the system, or you can basically go directly from the portable software instance installer, and it will actually pull down the order and install it for you, which is what we ended up doing. So on the COD installation, we had a kind of a simple process. We just, I think we actually end up playing with both FTP and USB installations. The gentleman that actually did the install did make a comment that he could not get the HMC software console to work, which we believe it should have, but we ended up using the ICC. We had an ICC 3270 console that we used to finish the COD installation. From a ServerPac point of view, from a really, like I said, ShopZ kind of normal pricing from version 3, which was nice, has kind of stayed the same as version 2. There looks like maybe a price increase on RMF, but not really a lot of things to worry about from the ordering perspective there. Jumping into portable software instances, though, this is my cluttery snapshot of my OSMF or my zOSMF interface, but we're going to pick the software management. If you notice, there's a lot of other applications that we're not going to get into, but we use the software management and the PSI interface here for the the zOS 3.1 installation. So just a couple of quick checks here. You select PSI, and then we actually elected to download from the server. One of the things, if you've not used zOSMF, one of your friends is going to be the actions bar. As you go through the various setup, the task, the subtask, the actions are going to obviously change, but that is the key interface on how you're going to do things as you move through zOSMF. You're going to select a topic, or you're going to check a box, check an action, and then you're going to have to pull down, whatever actions you can do on that object or that task at hand. So in this case, we're going to download from the server. This is just a really quick. I don't want to go through all the details on these screens. It would take hours, if not longer, to go through the full install process, but just kind of a quick run through. We're downloading from the server. A couple of new things, I think, with 3.1, you can actually do a verify signature, which is an added security feature if you want to get into security. One of the main things when you go do your order from ShopZ, you're going to get an HTML, and you're going to basically cut and you're going to paste that HTML into this box, and you can see that here in the kind of halfway down the screen here. Server, host deliverable, you've got the DNS name here and some other stuff. So this is important information that you're going to actually pull from your order, and you're going to place that into this window. And then you're going to have to make sure you got a work directory that's big enough to handle all of this stuff. And we had a couple of size issues where we would, assign a mod 27 and that wasn't big enough, and you have to go back and do a mod 54. So one of the things that we learned through this is make sure you have enough space. Once you get past this, if you've never done this, it's going to ask you for some basic JCL job card information. Once that's entered, it's going to save that, and you'll be able to use that going forward. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time there. One of the things we got into, and we kind of maybe stuck ourselves here a little bit. When you start this process, you're going to have to select a server. There is an option from the main screen where you can actually have your server information defined. And in this case, you got a failure saying this is basically saying our driver system, I can't see it, can't get to it. We went through several variations and installs because we had to reorder. We had this working at one point in time, but for whatever reason, when we looked at this, we came back and we noticed that it's pointing to, a DNS name here, the CPAC. If you look at this screen, a lot of stuff here, but the right side, the system information is here. There is, if you drill down into the windows and open it up, you can do a modify and you'll see a place where you have the URL. This is the address for your server. And we weren't doing name translation, that kind of thing. So all we had to do here is basically put in the IP address for our system. And once we did that, then things are fine. And you can actually verify this through the system icon on the zOSMF desktop. You can actually click on that, and then if you go under Actions, if you select the system that you're working with, you go under Actions, you can actually validate your connectivity beforehand, and it'll tell you if you're good or bad. So you'll know if you're good before you even start down this road. So lessons learned, just make sure your system is valid. You can get to your driver system, valid IP address, that kind of thing. So we got into this and we started down the process of adding the portable software instance, trying to download it. We hit the run. I'm kind of bypassing a few screens here, but we submitted the job and it failed, right? So I think most of you, if you've gone through zOSMF, you're going to see some similarity here maybe. But after we looked at it, and this was kind of a general information screen, you can look at the JCL from zOSMF. You can go over to your green screen through SDSF, and you can look at your job information there. I do like the way that zOSMF actually kind of bundles all of your related JCL input or output together in tabs. If you look at the screen, you can kind of see at the top where you've got everything from the JCL job, the standard output, the print, SMP out, all of that stuff is there, and it's just basically clicking on whatever it is of interest. So in this case, looking at the sysprint, we noticed that we ran into a problem. Once again, network with a DNS. In this case, this was the actual IBM host that we're going to pull down our deliverable from. So we had trouble, doing the address translation, didn't know where delivery cb dot, dash bid IBM.com was. So, we could have threw in an IP address and kept going that route. At this point, we decided to stop and go ahead and do some IP modifications to where we could do some DNS or some name resolution. And once we did that, then we resubmitted the same job, didn't change the name, everything worked fine. And the order pulled down, and installed. I shouldn't say installed. The order pulled down to the system, not installed yet. So just a really quick summary there. You have to just determine what download method you're going to use. Make sure that your system that you're installing, your driver system, probably the driver system that you're installing on, is functional. Your download times will vary. It can take a little while, depending, especially like our system has some very large stuff related to it. If we did the full download, there is a web URL here. I'm going to go ahead and click on it. This is one thing that we fall back to quite a few times, which is the ServerPac installation using zOSMF. So there's a lot of different links on here. The big picture, getting started, FAQs. This is just one of many. This is kind of a basic place to start, but how to get started, you can get in here. You can look at configuring, you can look at ordering, downloading, deploying. You can even, there's a try it, which I actually did. So if you want to actually, maybe you have zOSMF up and running, but you've never done a portable software instance install, there is a sample here on how to do one without really going through the full orders process. So if you're already there and kind of working, this is a good little toy to play with to get you started. If I can get back to where I left off. So now one of the main things, once you get the order pulled down to the system, you've got to go through a deployment. So back on the software management page, you'll see portable software instances here, and you have deployments. You can also look at other things like your product information. There's some really nice lists. You can actually get your FMID, your list of software products that's installed. There's a lot of things that you just takes time to play with and learn. But in this case, we're going to go into the deployment process, and this is probably the main architecture behind doing the install. It's going to take you through some guided steps from some basic setup information. The sysmods we're going to jump over because of SMPE, because we use the COD. In a real world, this is going to be an important step. We just kind of bypassed it to get things installed, and then we came back and did some modifications and got things updated and cloned over the SMPE environment. But configuring the deployment, and then probably the most important part of this deployment is the end, which is the workflows, where you're actually going to go in and do the fine tuning for the various zOS components. So from starting up with the development process, you have to kind of make your definitions. You're going to do your data set classification, your catalog definitions, assignments. And so there's going to be a number of screens when you're setting up the CSIs, global CSIs, or zones. All of this is going to be kind of in a guided step-for-step deal as you go through this. So in this case, this is showing the setup for the master catalog. We elected to skip the sysmod section. That's not in a real world. You're probably going to want to do your sysmods, but since COD doesn't have SMPE and we kind of elected to make it try to do a quick install, we didn't copy it over. So we didn't do any sysmods on this one, just for simplicity. As you get further down into the deployment, then you're going to actually get into the structure, the dlibs, the SMPE, the model, the cloning of data, things that you want to bring over. And the first screen you come to, if you actually look at it, this is a very similar process that you used for a normal ServerPac install. So as you go through these are just going to be more of a guided workflow type of implementation. COD driver, so the first thing you're going to come up to is the modeling, where you can actually model and copy over some of those SMPE catalogs. At this point, we elected to kind of skip it. In reality, you're actually going to go through this in a little more detail. So just for the necessity of saving time, this one we bypassed. We did, by the way, go back. I keep saying we, it's probably Dave, maybe Dick, but they did go back and we actually took this system and we modified it and brought it up to specs where we had SMPE and everything installed, and we're actually using that on one of our LPARs. So you can take this from a really basic, just training model, and then you can come back and clean it up a little bit and make it usable. So this isn't really completely wasted. Couple of things, I've probably spent more time capturing these than I wanted to, but there was some nice things that maybe wasn't quite there in earlier releases of zOSMF, but you can basically do a lot of things. There's obviously a lot of data sets. IBM's going to default these to their own qualifiers, in this case, the CB.OS31, 0735. And in reality, that's probably not what you're going to want. You can strip that off, which is what we did in this example. We just took that high-level qualifier CB.OS31, 0735 and just said, just rename it to nothing, right? And it did it. And to get further into this, there's a filtering option. So there's a lot of, like I said, a lot of data sets. You can filter, hard to read, probably not going to be able to read this at all, but you can actually do some filtering and get your data sets grouped together. You can select them all, and then you can basically kind of do that same thing where, in this case, we use OMVS, for example, where we didn't like the default high-level qualifier. So what we ended up doing was basically selected anything that had the OMVS name, and then we basically said, okay, take that that OMVS header and strip it and change it to sys1.ombs, and then with a click of a button, everything was done. So it was very easy. I found it very easy to use the filtering to select groups of data sets and to do mass changes in literally probably seconds. So And then you're obviously doing all this, you're trying to get all your data set naming set up to where you can get them all added to a master catalog, which we did a lot of work back and forth, and we specified our master catalog. We actually had an address, or a volume that we tried to use, and then we thought we had a 27 mod 27 volume, which was not big enough. So as soon as we tried to do the allocation, it failed, saying it's hard to read, but basically it says you're out of space. So we had to go back and go from a mod 27 to a mod 54. That fixed that problem. We got so involved with this, there is a step where you actually have to assign the data sets, and you have to catalog things, and you have to assign that to the volume. We kind of left off that step a little bit in maybe some haste that we were going through. I don't know what we did, but anyway, we kind of, the first time through, we kind of went through it. And system really didn't remind us, it's fine. You went through and you renamed some data sets. You really didn't define them to a catalog, but it kind of let you do your thing. Once again, we went through some other definitions where we were trying to, especially like when you're doing data space or anything where it's temp space or working, you want to make sure that you have enough workspace in order to get by that. So mod 54s worked out well for us. We basically defined a job. This process builds the job statement to where you're going to define the master catalog, and we ran it and we got an error. And so sure enough, after we looked at the JCLs and you start looking at it in detail, you can kind of see where it's doing the definition of the master cat, and there's nothing there. Well, there's nothing there because we didn't finish the step in the previous master cat catalog definitions where we assigned the data sets. So no problem. We jumped back to deployment, went back into the catalogs. In this point, it's kind of hard to see, but you can see here where under actions there is a select catalog and catalog data sets, and so that's really the process that we missed. Back into that process of modifying the catalog. Prior to this, you have to select your data sets, do your modification, and essentially this GUI is just basically input that you're going to see in the job, that you're filling it out with your volume that you're going to use for your master catalog name, your space, basically same stuff that you would do normally. And then once we ran this again with the master cat defined and the data sets defined, then, and you can see in the statement here on the right, everything worked fine as far as that particular step. As you go through this, you can actually watch the JC. You can actually monitor. You can bring up the JCL, watch things as things are progressing. And once again, you can do it with a green screen. Just be aware that the screens under zOSMF are not going to, they're static, so they're not going to dynamically update. There is a refresh button at the bottom. So if you're going to watch progression going through zOSMF, you're going to want to hit the refresh button to make that happen. And so let's see, time check. I'm running more out of time than what I thought I would. Another thing we got burned on, as I said, we run a lot of IBM products. We have a lot of ZFS files, large ZFS file system. And in fact, it was so big, it was so broken. We had I think this was another where we may have had to order again. And then essentially in the zOSMF process, in this particular step 5 here, which is hard to read, the IZUD05ZF, that failed. And after talking with support, we basically had so many ZFS files, we had to take that job and run it and split it up into multiple jobs. So this is one of those where you couldn't really use the guided process, and that's fine. If you go back through and look at zOSMF, it is a guided. You have to do step 1 before you do step 2, before you do step 3, but there are overrides. So you can actually select a step and say, look, override it. I know what I'm doing, bypass it, ignore it, and let me go to the next step. So there may be some of those that you're going to have to deal with as well. So deployment summary. Basically, other than just kind of maybe some self-induced things here and the ZFS file size, we pretty much didn't, it's just kind of standard process. We bypassed the modeling, which is those SMPE and those target zones. We did go back, we had the guys go back and re-add those later. So for simplicity, we didn't do that in this example. And then as for us, because of the size of our ZFS volumes, they were taking a lot of time. So that's one of those where you probably kind of queue that up at the end of the day and let it run. The last part of the deployment is the workflows, and this is kind of a critical piece. You can kind of see a lot of these here. This is where you're going to have tasks, and these are going to break down into subtasks. And those subtasks are where you're really going to get into defining and setting up, your various zOSMF settings, whether it's WLM. You can kind of see some of the examples on here. And these are going to be sequential steps that it's going to take you through step by step, explain what you're doing, kind of guide you through that flow. There are a lot of steps, and so I can tell you here, and another thing we got burned on is a lot of these tasks, or these titles here. There are a few where you're going to have to break them down. You'll see a plus symbol, and if you try to just do an action against a plus, it's not going to do anything. You're going to have to break it down to the subtask, and then when you do your actions, you'll have more things available there. But so always drill down to your subtask when those pop up. Skip this one here real quick. One of the things I thought was kind of worthwhile as you go through this, there are a lot of steps involved with the workflows. There is a way under the post-deploy task that you can actually go in and you can actually export the workflow in a printable format. And this is going to be probably, this was a quick one. Here it says 48 pages. You're probably going to have 200 pages if you do the full. You can actually print these with JCL samples, or you can print them without. So, but you can basically, if you want a hard copy, you can actually go in here and export the workflow into a printable format. And then you can print that and use that as a checkbox. So a lot of people still like the old paper format. Real quick thing here on the final step. So, make sure you got your PTS, right? We got burned a couple of times by not having the right PTF, or current, I should say the current PTS, because things were changing all the time. I think anything here that's worth noting. Trying to speed this up a little bit. So workflow task. Workflows are part of the IBM flow. You can actually build your own workflows. There's a workflow editor. So if you want to go outside of this and maybe you have some other software that's in the shop, you can use the workflows to do a tool there. Here's of samples if you want to see a workflow from 2.5 to 3.1, 2.4 to 3.1, or if you want to see hardware workflows on a Z16, 15, they're all linked here. These all will take you to those workflow links. You can even see some previous older workflows from version 2, 3, or 4. This is going to take you to one of Marna Wally's sites where you'll have those workflows available. So those links are all there. There's some stuff in Media Center here if you want to see what workflows are, how to play that back. We did get burned, like I said, on a couple of APARs. So as we went through this process, this first one would have been fixed if we had the right build level of our ServerPac. And then there's probably this last one is important to note. You want to make sure that APAR is installed, especially if you're merging ZFS data sets during the upgrade process. If you do this and you do a merge without the APAR, they basically tell you to go read the APAR. It's going to tell you you're going to have to reload zOS all over again, basically. So you don't want to get into this scenario. So make sure you got your APARs out there, that they're installed, and that, especially in this merged ZFS, it could be a real pain. One of the things we use, or I use quite a bit, is the Media Center. I'm going to bring that up really quick. And if you look, there's 30 media, and these are all videos. It's loading. Should usually quicker than that. Anyway, here we go. But there are a ton of stuff out here. I'm gonna give Kurt Quackenbush kudos. He did a really good job. There is a full tutorial section, and he's broken down into different topics from tutorial 1 all the way up through 5 on server, or actually more than that, on ServerPac installation. So you can break these down into sections from ordering, installing, and you can get all the details you want. He does a really good job of documenting this in the video. And then there's other tutorials here as well. So just be aware that that's there. This one we use a lot, the ServerPac installation using zOSMF. Once again, there's a link. You can get started here and get you to a couple other references. I thought this was very encompassing as far as another place to go for zOSMF information. You have the homepage, blogs, discussions, video. The library actually is very useful on this one. So if you go here, you can go to the library and dig up a lot of videos. If you're a YouTube person and you like videos, this is the place to go. The guild, the zOSMF guild, if you're not doing it, I would highly advise, and I'm going to take some time on this one. This is a great community. They have a number of experts, and they run monthly sessions on various zOSMF related topics. And if you look at this, the last session here, April 17th, is session number 28. All of these are recorded. The presentations are available. The videos, typically, the video links are typically available. Your presentation recording, but there is a ton of information here, that a wealth of information relating to zOSMF. And along that same line, the guild also has a page. If you have any kind of questions relating to zOSMF, you can type it in here. Very simple page, email address, who you are, and I won't say how responsive they are, but there is a way that you can ask questions directly to this team of experts. And I'll say there's probably 6 or 7 people on this team. And that gets us into the open mic. Robert, I can't see since I'm presenting. I don't know if there's questions.
Yeah. There was one question in the Q&A box. It says, is the COD installed on or through the HMC? And if through the HMC, what happens when there is no direct connectivity to the HMC? We can only access ours through a tightly restricted jump server. That's the question in the chat.
So to answer your question, yes, it's installed directly through the HMC. Depending on the level of HMC, it could be DVD, most likely not. It's probably going to be USB, something you're going to stick there, or FTP. If it's a restricted server, that one, I don't know off my head what you're going to do. Kind of similar, you can install VM through a stick as well. So there is a installable way to get caught up, and there has to be, because how do you get, if you've never had zOSMF up and running, how do you install it? But I would have to go back to the COD or the definition to answer the question. If you have limited
Hey, this
access,
is Dick Winston. I'm on now. I just got on a little bit ago.
okay.
For the COD, first thing is you don't even necessarily, I think that's what Ray was getting at. I don't know if you need the COD. If you have zOSMF up and configured, there's no reason for that. It was just for some systems that are really back leveled, they would spend a lot of effort getting zOSMF up and running. So instead you can come with the customized offering driver, the COD, and zOSMF is already configured on it. Now to do that, you're going to need an LPAR to run it in. And yeah, like Ray was saying, normally we just do it with downloads from IBM, and it's a 3-pack system. So yeah, security and firewalls, that can be an issue to download anything.
Let's see. That's the only question that's in the chat that I see on the Q&A.
So like I said earlier, we've been doing the zOSMF thing for several years. We've got a number of people that's been in the driver's seat. Dick was one of those, call them seasoned programmers that we have. But we do help. We're here to help. If you just want something from a simple assessment, or if you actually want somebody, if you want us to come in and help you actually do the installation, it's all there. So
one thing I would add here, Ray, for people,
yep.
If you're familiar or comfortable with doing the ServerPac dialogues, it's going to make this a lot easier, because you're going to, most things in the zOSMF workflows and all of that you can relate back to a step in the ServerPac dialogues. So you can see what it is you're doing. It's just IBM's way of building a zOS system. It's a different way of doing it, but the end result is going to be the same. So if you know the ServerPac dialogues is going to help out a whole lot.
Yep. Basically the same stuff. It's just documented, and it's step for step, right? It's a guided flow to help you get through it.
And some of the things in here, particularly in the system layout, They have some really good filtering you can do. If you want to move data sets around and change names and all that, it really is easier than the dialogues once you get the hang of it.
Yep, and that's what I was trying to portray in some of those earlier slides. There's not enough time to cover everything in detail, but there is so many different filter options on how to list your data sets, and then you can do some mass changes with a click of a button. So,
and probably like most of you, we came kicking and fighting into the zOSMF. It wasn't like we embraced it right away. Let's go.
Another question popped up in the Q&A. It says zOSMF is OTC, or do we need to pay SS year after year or year over year?
So from zOSMF is it's a base element. It's part of zOSMF. I don't know that if that's a good question, and I have to get back because I don't know if it's a priced thing or if it's just, it is part of zOSMF. It is part of zOS. So I don't
I'm almost sure it's not priced.
I don't think it's priced either, but I would have to verify. I don't think it has a separate. I don't think it has a separate PID. I don't think you can order it separate. I think it's part of the base. To be honest,
ingrained.
If it doesn't have a PID, you can't charge for it. I guess I shouldn't say that.
Okay. Thank you. And I think that's it for the questions.
So this was a little bit one-off with the COD installation. Maybe lessons learned is probably more beneficial at this point, because I'm sure a lot of folks have started down the road, probably bumped your head more than once, and maybe you're getting stuck, or maybe you don't even know where to start. I don't know, but there seems to be kind of, obviously there's a variation of different levels of training and where people are right now trying to get things installed. People, I won't say cheated, but back in the 2.4, 2.5, you could actually pre-order stuff ahead of time and keep it and use the old installation method. But you're out of luck now. There's no way around 3.1, or if you haven't ordered anything, there's no way around not using zOSMF and that PSI interface to do your installations. You have to go down that road.
All right.
It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing.
2 more questions came in. How was the ordering process from shops, SHOPZ? And then one says, can we order and apply any maintenance using zOSMF?
Process of ordering, like Ray says, it's just part of zOS. So it's just another feature that this comes in with. So it's no different to order anything else on Shop Z. As far as maintenance, yeah, that's how it's maintained, is just through the normal put process, PTFs. Is that what you're asking, how to maintain zOSMF? Or, well, I guess the question maybe, are to apply any maintenance using? Yes, that's part of it. You can do your software upgrades using zOSMF.
Looks like we're about at end of time. Well, this does conclude today's webinar. Thank you everyone for attending this event. A reminder that this recording will be sent via email post-webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your CDW rep for more information. Thank you all and have a great rest of your day.